400.
I know. 400, oo.
Diba?
The lowest in 17 months. Kaya lang, meron namang 3 Pilipino under home isolation ngayon after arriving last Friday from South Africa.
Na-detect na.
No.
Pero
Binomonitor pa lang.
Hindi pa
Binomonitor pa lang.
hindi pa lumalabas. Yeah, suspected, whatever. Yeah, suspected ba tawag doon? Baka may Omicron.
Pero
Hindi pa natin alam yun, right?
pero nakakaba pa rin because Japan confirmed na meron sila and they were on lockdown also.
Right.
And also still on COVID. Inuubos po natin yung COVID case because we'll be talking a lot of politics later on. Yung vaccination drive, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ami, binabaan ba nila yung target? Kasi alam ko 15 million pinag-uusapan natin dati.
Binabaan
nila kasi kulang ng hiringgilya.
Pero okay naman daw yung reaction.
Yes.
Malaki. 2.5 million on the first day. So, ayun, fantastic naman yung reaction.
Ay meron talagang aberya. But ayun nga, 2.5 million in the first day, looking good. And also, the second part of that is there will be another 3-day drive in the middle of December. So may ano pa rin po tayo. We're still ramping up our vaccination. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Now we talk about politics. We will talk more about Senator Bongo later on and PDP Laban. But now, let's start muna with the senatorial race. We have tonight with us 2022 Nationalist People's Coalition senatorial aspirant, former Quezon City Mayor Herbert Bautista. Good evening, Mayor Bautista.
Good evening, Robbie, Ami, and Lucci. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
Mayor, of course, tagal-tagal nyo na kasi sa local politics. I don't know what other than bistek, ano pang itatawag ko sa inyo. But let me start with this. Bakit po why national position this time?
Well, siyempre yung local dynamics kasi hindi natin maiwasan, no? So Senator Soto and I got to talk, and after 33 years in local government service, parang sabi niya, panahon na para you dedicate yourself in national service naman.
You've been in Nationalist People's Coalition ever since, no? Have you been solid NPC? Because right now it's the most solid party, no? Hindi sila masyadong nag-sharing at have you been solid with NPC?
Well, 1992 nasa NPC ako, Lucci. And then by flow of circumstance, napunta ako sa LDP noong 95 because
so nag-LTV.
Dahil si Mayor Matay and si Vice Mayor Charito Planas were Lakas and LP ang coalition nila. So I transferred to LDP. And then LDP hanggang sa maglamp. Hanggang 2001, LDP, I won as Vice Mayor under Rudy Fernandez. Rudy Fernandez lost and Sonny Belmonte, Speaker Belmonte won as Mayor. And a year after that, Speaker Belmonte invited me to join to Lakas. And then 2009, I was about to run for Mayor in 2010. Biglang nagkaroon ng transition dahil si Jojo Ochoa, our city administrator, organized the transfer of the entire team ng Quezon City with, of course, Mayor Belmonte na naging speaker after sa Liberal Party. No? And then, in 2016...
Ang dami mo na rin pala pinagdaanan
And then in 2016, pumasok si Presidente Duterte, tumaas ang PDP. Towards the end of the last term, biglang nagkalasan sa LP sila Joy, lumipat sila sa PDP, and then naiwan ako sa LP, and then finally I went to Boss Nanding, was still alive then, and I took my oath under him, going back to NPC like in 1992.
So Mayor, you've been in local government for the longest time. We imagine na ang isusulong ninyo pag nanalo kayo sa Senado, measures involving local government. Tama ba yun? Yun ba platform niya?
Well, not only that, marami pa iba. Like, for example, the local government code has been there since 1991. Ang dami natin dapat i-amend doon. When I was reviewing the parang AFMA, yung Aquatic and Fisheries Resource Management natin, 1999 pa. So marami na nabago eh. Especially now that we're threatened in the West Philippine Sea and yung internal waters natin eh, parang kulang sa suporta, no? So I'm looking at enhancing or strengthening the maritime industry for internal waters, for domestic purposes. No? So, hindi lang dapat tayo gumagawa ng mga barko para sa export. Gumagawa rin dapat tayo ng, bigyan natin ng incentive yung mga shipbuilders natin na gumawa naman kayo para sa atin sa Pilipinas. No? So, ganun yung naiisip ko.
Pero mas executive ka kesa legislative, eh, no? I think nag-counselor ka lang for a short period of time. Tama ba, no? But after that, vice na. Tapos mayor na napakatagal.
Well,
so, yeah. Why the shift to legislative now and national legislative?
Ang history ko talaga is that I was counselor for representing the youth, no? In 1988, where seatmate ko si Kiko Pangilinan, ang vice mayor namin si Tito Soto. So ganun yung seatmate namin. And then, ironically, naglaban sila ngayon for vice president. No? And then, so counselor ako noon. In 92, naging konsehal din ako for 3 years. 95, vice mayor ako to 1998. I lost in the mayorship in 98. Went back to being vice mayor in 2001 to 2010. Vice Mayor is the presiding officer of the legislative department of the city council
yes.
Siya, diba? So practically, I'm trained to become a legislator.
Sa bagay, no? As vice mayor.
And then 9 years executive function.
Sige, let's start with that. Nabanggit niyo yung local government code na it's time to revisit it. What specifically do you think needs to be improved?
Well, siyempre, lalo na ngayon, yung Mandanas ruling ng Supreme Court, di ba? Malaking bagay yan sa atin. And, I did the rounds in the different provinces like Isabela, Cagayan. I went to Baguio. Just the other day, I was in Bohol and Cebu. Yung mga local governments, especially yung mga munisipyo, talagang inaabangan talaga yung pag-download ng almost 1 trillion pesos dito sa kanilang mga LGUs, no? From the provincial down to the barangay level. Ang nakikita natin dito, Robbie, is that marami pa rin tayong mga munisipyo na highly dependent on IRA. Pero ngayon, ang tawag dyan sa IRA, Internal Revenue Allotment, ang tawag, because of the Mandanas, is the National Tax Allotment. So parang ang nakakatakot dyan, everybody is looking at recovering from the pandemic. Karamihan ng kanilang pondo na makukuha, baka dalhin nila sa PS. Well, syempre, okay lang naman nagdalhin sa personal services, pero dapat gamitin din natin sa mga productive na may kinalaman sa ekonomiya natin. Like, kung rural ka, sa agricultural sector, doon may buhos, no? Or kung kulang ka ng ospital, di magtayo ka ng ospital doon sa inyong lugar, no? By enhancing cooperation. Meron sa local government code kasi, nanalo ng Galing POC Awards to. 5 or 6 local governments, pinagsama-sama nila yung pondo nila to build roads and bridges sa kanilang lugar.
This is Palma. This is the Palma project.
Yeah. So I guess kung kulang ng ospital, di pagsama-samahin din nila yung pondo nila para magtayo sila ng ospital. Something like that, no? It may not be economically sound dahil wala man balik yon, pero ang return of investment doon yung health naman ng mga tao. And of course, preparing our communities na kapag dumating ulit yung sakaling pandemya na hindi tayo lahat ready, dumating yung panahon na ready na rin. At least hindi na rin naalis yung mga doktor, yung mga nurses, etc. Dahil meron silang pagtutuunan ng kanilang skills.
Yeah, but Mayor, does that mean, how do you strike a balance? Kasi the other time naman, ito, baliktad naman yung tanong namin, si Senator Cheese naman yung tinanong namin. Kumusta going from national, going to local? Mas masaya ba? May sarili kang teritoryo dyan, no? And sinabi niya, actually, that's a myth na ang isang na-discover niya raw nung nag-LGU siya, hindi pala totoo na, may karapatan kaming, to do what we want, ideas namin, plano namin, then we execute. And then he felt he didn't use this word, but the tyranny of the national government, sabi niya, still essentially dictating on local governments on what to do. Doon po sa sinasabi niyo, does that cross that line, do you think? Or is there a balance here to be struck?
Well, talaga naman 'yon, especially in in local governments na medyo talagang kapos sa human and financial resources. Talaga may dikta talaga diyan ang national government, no? By principle, as a matter of principle, yung local government code, gagawa ng local development plan ng local, dadalhin sa provincial, sa regional, dadalhin sa NEDA. And then yung NEDA, pagsasama-samahin lahat ng mga plans na to, dun kukuha ngayon ng pondo para maigawing investment. Pababa naman. Supposed to be bottom up, di ba? Pero hindi nangyayari yun eh. Hindi nangyayari yun. That's why, para sa akin, lalo na ngayon na may Mandanas, kailangan ang dikta galing sa taas para lang itono kung saan ang gamit ng pondo. Hango doon sa pangangailangan ng lokal. Kasi mahirap yung diktahan ka ng nasa taas, biglang hindi naman yun talaga yung need mo. So yun. So makikita natin lahat yan sa comprehensive land use plan, sa local development plan, sa local development investment plans. Pagsasama-samahin sa provincial level yun from municipality up to the city level, up to the provincial level. Pagdating nun, yung region yun na siya magbubuo ng lahat. Doon niya makikita kung anong klaseng investment pwedeng pumasok yung national through their congressmen at saka kung saan papasok yung investment ng local. Hango doon sa resources na kaya nilang ilikom from their local sources. So,
ang sinasabi naman dyan ng national government, masyado daw magulo yung ganyang klaseng development planning. In fact, ang sinabi ngayon ni Department of Finance Secretary Sunny Dominguez, ang efficiency daw ng national government in using the funds for development is double the efficiency of local governments. Kaya medyo magulo nga daw yung Mandanas na yan dahil masyadong magiging micro yung planning ng maraming mga proyekto. Of course, merong mga proyekto na mas nakakaintindi yung local officials, pero yung mga long-term planning daw, medyo magugulo dahil dyan.
Hindi naman siguro, Ami, kasi kaya siguro nalipat sa Central Bank si DBM Secretary Jokno dahil nagkabanggaan sa Secretary of Finance. dahil si Secretary Jokno was very clear in the bottom-up principle ng local government. And that yung national government will only invest in certain areas where they're supposed to invest, diba? Kailangan malinaw naman yan eh. Although, syempre, marami pa rin tayong mga local governments na hindi nakakapag-submit ng kanilang comprehensive land use and development plans, yun ay pupush ngayon ng DILG. So, dito, marami mga mandatories na hindi nagagawa ng mga LGU, especially yung mga munisipyo. Dahil, yun nga, yung human capacity, yung fiscal capacity nila, hindi sapat. No? So, that's why itong Mandanas, inaasahan natin na makakatulong ito, provided na merong guideline na magsasabi na kailangan gamitin nila ito para maging economically productive yung kanilang pag-investan ng kanilang mga pondo. Ang worry nga dyan, nagkwentuhan kami ni Chis okay, magda-download ng pondo based on the Mandanas ruling by 2022 next year. Pero ang rule pa rin dyan is yung 3 years preceding yung source, yung pinagbabasihan. Ang pinagbabasihan ay 2019. Pagdating mo ngayon ng 2020 yung pagbabasihan mo, bagsak ang ekonomiya. That's why kailangan malinaw na malinaw kung saan dadalhin itong pondo to, ituturo kung saan talaga dadalhin para gamitin sa mas economically enhancing na mga programa, hindi lang dun sa personal services katulad ng nabanggit ko kanina.
Well, pero yung mga ganyan ba, dadaan ba yan pa? I mean, do you need another law to make sure that the Mandanas ruling is equitably utilized by LGUs, no? Considering that it's really just a Supreme Court ruling and 'di ba meron na namang local government code, but now lumalabas nga na for it to be the game changer that it's expected to be, 'di ba dapat may guidelines din dyan? Tsaka baka mamaya national treasury naman ang mawalan. Diba?
Yun na nga, that's why yung tulad ng binanggit ni Robbie kanina, ni Ami, no, na ayaw pakawalan ng Department of Finance to. Kasi because practically 1 trillion is so big an amount that will be loss in the coffers.
1/3 of the budget. Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then pag nakita mo yung debt servicing natin, mataas din. So parang wala na silang space, no?
Yes.
That's why mahalaga yung DBM, mahalaga yung NEDA, mahalaga yung finance, na sabihin sa kanila, pati na rin yung ibang mga departments like agriculture, tourism, DILG, sabihin sa kanila kung ano talaga dapat yung tono ng paggamit ng pondo. Kita naman natin yan eh. Meron naman tayong PDP, di ba? Yung Philippine Development Plan. Hango yan sa mga local government submissions and department level projections. No?
Yeah.
So, dapat maano natin yan.
So hindi na kailangan naman ng batas dyan siguro, no? I mean, will the Senate, do you see the Senate having to play a role in the implementation of the Mandanas ruling, or do you think that's a purely executive function now?
Tingin ko dapat meron pa ring batas coming from the Senate or both chambers of Congress. Dahil sa una, may tendency yung national government to withhold. No? Kaya nga nagka-demandahan nung araw. Dapat ito automatic talaga released. Number one. Number two, gawin natin 5-year development plan. Saan natin gagamitin itong pondo na to? So kailangan malinaw na malinaw yun based on congressional and local government cooperation, collaboration. O di tutukan natin. It requires everybody's support from the national government departments to the legislature hanggang sa local government. Kasi it's going to be put to waste kapag pinabayaan lang natin, ito pondo nyo, bahala na kayo.
Mayor, nabanggit nyo na yung all levels of government from the national down to local. Let me throw in the fourth estate. How do we improve accountability and transparency in local governments? Especially now, like we said, bubuhos yung pera sa local governments, and we're not just talking about major cities and big municipalities. Yung iba dyan, liblib. And it's not just all about corruption. It can also just be about, as you said, absorptive capacity, efficiency, even, let's face it, capability and skills to just be transparent about all of these things. Some people have pointed out, di ba? Lahat ng tutok natin, when we talk about pork barrel, we look at Congress, we look at the Senate, but some people have told me, yung ibang LGUs nga, ibang cities, yung pondo ng konsehal, mas malaki pa sa pork barrel ng congressman. I mean, how do we ensure that down to every local government that is now handling more money, that there is also transparency and accountability?
Well, you'll be amazed that yung mga nakausap ko mga munisipyo, magagaling sila. I mean, they really are good. Most of them, if not all, are all award winners and recognized by credible national institutions sa pag-handle ng kanilang pondo. I think the equally important thing to do is, number one, transparency. Nakapost naman dapat lahat ng gastos sa mga Facebook nila, sa mga social media accounts nila, sa internet, no? Active naman ng COA sa pagbabantay sa kanila. Freedom of information is also very important, no? Kung wala sa national yan, edi gumawa na ng local FOIs. I mean we have to be transparent in our government affairs. That's part of good governance. So kailangan makita talaga yan.
Ako ang tatanong sa iyo, 33 years ka na sa politics, no?
Yeah.
Yung mga nangyari nitong nakaraang buwan lang, mula nung nag-filing ng Certificate of Candidacy.
Yeah.
Anong basa mo dyan how has politics transformed from since you first joined it in 1992?
Well, it really only shows how weak our political institutions are. Diba? Our political party. You see, I'll cite you an example, Lucia. I remember I ran for mayor in 1998, and there was a rule, I think, in the Omnibus Election Code, that if you're running for a higher office, you have to resign your post, which I did. I resigned as vice mayor and ran for mayor and lost. Diba? But before 2001, inalis nila yung provision na yun ng Omnibus Election Code. So, tingin ko, nung nawala yun, di kanya-kanya na, di ba? Wala nang resignation dito, etc., etc. And that also weakened our institutions. Yung substitution, nagtataka ko, ba't kinailangan hanggang November 15? Pwede naman 1 week after the last day, tsaka ka mag-extend, di ba? At the end of the day, parang wala rin naman pala nangyari. Ganun din lang naman, di ba? Pero yung substitution by surname, dapat maiwan yun. Kasi baka mamaya yung kandidato, very popular, pero masakit, may sakitin na, biglang noon time of election day, natigok siya. So, tama lang naman na yung kanyang kapatid, anak, asawa, or what have you, basta same surname at kamag-anak niya, pumalit sa kanya. We have a very weak political institution, and kailangan palakasin na natin yan. I mean, we have to reform our political institutions. Mahinang-mahina talaga.
What about the party? What about the party system? What about the party system? What do you think we can do?
Well, there must be a change in the Constitution kapag ka-party system, di ba? Multi-party kasi ang declaration natin sa Constitution, pero bicameral tayo. So, dun pa lang may conflict na. Yung halimbawa, party lists, no? Hopefully determined na talaga paano ka manalo as party list. Pero I remember, Marcos period, pagka sinabing, I was supposed to be youth representative in the Batasan in 1985. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and NCR or Metro Manila, yun yung may representation ng youth. Pag sinabing agriculture, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Pag sinabing urban poor, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, NCR. I mean, may representation. So in other words, kung ikaw ay grupo na magsasakang taga Mindanao, di maglaban-laban kayo sa Mindanao. Kung sino man yung dapat manalo within that island group, di siya magiging representative ng sektor na yon doon sa batasan o sa Congress, di ba? Para hindi tayo overrepresented and at the same time underrepresented din sa ibang mga sektor. I hope you understand. Huwag sana magalit sa akin yung mga party list na friends
Naku, hindi, galit na sila sa iyo habang nagsasalita ka. Okay, yeah.
Mayor, nabanggit mo rin yung you want to improve our defense of the West Philippine Sea. Can you be more specific? Ano yung balak niyong isulong kung mananalo kayo?
Una, we really have to protect our, una atin na yan, maliwanag yan. Prior to the Hague ruling, parang yung taong bayan, lalo na yung Pilipino, parang okay, sige, West Philippine Sea, atin ba yun? Pero because of the Hague, the ruling, luminaw yan at nakilala na yan ng tao at dapat lang depensahan natin yan. There are certain areas in that part of the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea na hindi talaga natin ma-develop ng gusto, no? Dahil usapan natin with other countries. I am more in the maritime security of both internal and external waters. What I'm saying kanina, I think Lucci can bear me with this, na meron tayong 4 or 5 shipbuilding corporations na dito sa Pilipinas. One of them is in Cebu. I went near the town where it is being done. And nagtataka ako, bakit naglalabas pa tayo ng dollars para bumili sa South Korea, bumili tayo sa France? Kaya naman natin magbuo dito. We're supposed to be a great maritime country, pero hindi natin ma-develop yung mga shipbuilding or boat building natin. Para gumawa ng mga para sa maritime police, sa Coast Guard natin, sa Navy natin. I mean, gumawa lang tayo ng isang magaling, ang dami nating naval and maritime engineers na pwedeng tumulong sa atin, di ba?
Pero kailangan ba yan ng legislation? What?
Oh yes, you have to give them incentives kasi wala silang incentives, di ba? So, and then incentives in both investors and technical skills. No, kailangan natin sila bigyan ng incentive. Nagtataka nga ako, Ami, isipin mo, pwede naman siguro for every isang barko na i-export mo at may umorder sa atin, i-require natin na gumawa sila ng 10 frigate para naman sa Coast Guard or sa Navy natin. I mean, hindi na tayo maglalabas ng dollars para bumili ng kagamitan pang dagat natin. Tayo na mismo ang gagawa. And eventually, as we move forward, we will be able to enhance our skills. Mas mapapaganda natin. Maparami natin yun. Baka nag-export na rin tayo ng mga equipment o mga bangka o barko o vapor para sa panlaban sa or protection for Navy, for maritime or for Coast Guards, di ba? Tingin ko kailangan natin suportahan yung industriya na yan. That is for our internal security and both external security. Kailangan natin yun eh. Kailangan natin yun.
Okay, merong Marites question si Ami. Nakangiti si Ami eh. Dali na, game na, Ami. Ikaw
Siguro
na.
si Marisa
Mas
yan.
credible ka dyan eh.
Sige,
Dahil
sige.
politiko kayo, syempre, na nalilink din kayo sa showbiz. Merong mga controversies involving two certain actresses. Baka po gusto niyong mag-comment doon sa mga controversy.
Bakit bina-blind item mo pa? Sabihin mo na.
Chris Aquino and Rufa Gutierrez. So, ayan, pinangalanan na.
Well, ewan ko, wala pa siyang on air, pero ang crush ko talaga si Ma'am Jean ng UP. So,
Hindi talaga. No comment, ano.
well, si Chris kasi is already with Secretary Mel, and I think they're really very happy. And okay yun, tama lang naman that they be together. And si Rufa naman, kanina nagkaroon ako ng parang vlog press con with the entertainment media. Sabi ko, una, 53 years old na ako at si Rupa yata is 46 or 47. But I still said that tanungin na muna kay Tita Annabel kung ano ba talaga yung type niya sa mga papangasawa ng anak niya bago niyo ako tanungin kung ano nga ba yung sa amin ni Rupa.
Pasado ka naman kay Annabel eh, sabi nila, di ba?
I have not heard or read anything about it.
No, ayan, Ami, may headline ka na. Herbert Bautista denies.
Denial ba yun? Denial? Hindi yata.
Buko, bahala ka na, Ami.
Not outright denial.
Hala ko may showbiz headline na kami.
Wala, Luchi.
Sige. Sige, ito, we're almost out of time, sir. So, ibabalik ko naman kasi baka may huling mga nakapanood. Akala showbiz talaga yung topic natin. Tumatakbo po for senator. So, I want to ask you also, because you are also from the entertainment industry, you're obviously a very good communicator. Pero ito napapansin niyo naman yung bangayan ng lahat ng all sectors of society, this trolling culture, para bang yung lalo na as we enter elections, talagang everybody's polarized. And government itself, our government leaders themselves have contributed to that. How do we bring back some sobriety in politics?
Well, una tama yun na meron tayong mainstream media kasi that's where they will be able to validate real, truthful news as against fake news. On the other hand, yung mga providers naman like Google, Facebook, and other platforms, they have their own respective fact-checkers. Diba? Tayo naman, meron din tayo respective fact-checkers natin. So, para sa mga mamamayan ng Pilipinas, bago kayo mag-react na, totoo, i-fact check nyo muna. And I think that's one way na magagawa natin magkaroon ng semblance of sanity dito sa ating bansa. Number two, we all know too well that we will not be able to at least regulate. Hindi tayo pwede maging katulad ng China na okay, kami na bahala rito. Hindi. But at least itong mga politicians or even mga intrigero should stop spreading fake news kasi it doesn't really help. It only polarizes our country, and tayo naman bilang recipient ng information, we must always be able to fact check our information.
Okay. Herbert Bautista, tumatakbo po bilang senador sa Nationalist People's Coalition. Maraming salamat po. Opo.
Rabi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ami and Luchi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Maraming salamat po. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back, the Chiefs, here on One News. With us now, political analyst Professor Dindo Manhit and Professor Jean Encinas Franco. Good evening, professors.
Good evening.
Hello, Prof.
Good evening.
Dindo,
Hi, good
Prof. Jean.
evening. Good evening.
Dindo, let me start with you. Of course, we're talking about Senator Bongo withdrawing, assuming this is all formalized tomorrow. So may safety pa rin tayo. We can never really say until nangyari na. No? But assuming it's actually formalized and withdraw, so everybody's now saying, hey, sinabi ka na nga natin, dyan din pupunta yan sa ganitong direksyon and so on. But do we know? Or are people still jumping the gun here?
I was expecting this, Robbie, because of the statement or a letter that I saw last week, and even some update that I got from some members of Congress was present in the Malacanang meeting. But it was we saw some drama that it's hard to run for president. Why say those things publicly when it will not lead to this? So I was expecting it. I was even saying it in the next few days. Maybe I was just so when it happened this morning.
Okay. Niya, ayaw daw, etc., etc. But we've seen him invest in it. He has billboards in Mindanao.
Yes.
He has already bought television spots. May policasis na siya, no? And now he's saying na ayaw naman daw ng family niya. So how do we frame this
when did
for a
the
better
family,
understanding? Yeah.
When did the family become part of any narrative of Bongo? We always hear about President Duterte. It's 2016, no? So I don't get drawn by those points raised by Senator Bongo. At bottom line, it seems that the tampuhan, which I've always seen when the president, I felt, was not really consulted or was not in control of that decision of the tandem between Marcos and Sara Duterte. Maybe it has been fixed or it has been addressed or he was been appeased on this issue. And because that's the only reason why a Bongo withdrawal will have any value at all politically. Now they consolidate their forces.
Yan nga yung question ngayon. Who will President Duterte support? Kasi after his tirade against Bongbong Marcos about the cocaine user.
Was it a tirade or was it inoculation?
Patama lang, patama ano.
I use the term inoculation.
Well,
Now the issue is out, and suddenly it becomes a non-issue.
So you actually think there's traction in the suspicion na yun talaga actually ang scenario that they are pushing for a Marcos-Duterte tandem for 2020?
From day one, when I saw the two got together, Marcos and Sara Duterte, I felt that that's the direction.
Okay.
But there were a lot of maybe friction along the way because the president wanted to be in control. Maybe he wanted Sara Duterte on top more than Bongbong. But there are forces that went around him maybe. That's why he felt bad. Forced that issue on Bongo. Remember that circus that we saw one Saturday afternoon of rushing to file for Senator Bongo. But for me, I was expecting it later when they see some numbers, but maybe when they analyze it, that what about the numbers of Bongbong? It will not take away votes from Bongo. Will not take away votes from others. He will take away votes from Bongbong Marcos.
Professor Jean, do you agree? Professor Jean, do you agree na at the end of the day, this whole innuendo about cocaine user and so on is really just meant to inoculate the candidate against a more serious look into that assertion?
Well, from the very start, the cocaine accusation was really, I wanted to also downplay it because we're distracted from the real issue on why people should not vote for Bongbong Marcos. No? And the mere fact that it's the president saying that, it's consistent with how he has been with regard to his opponents. But then it makes so much of an issue that is close to his heart. Of course, it's still about drugs, but then it also downplays the very issue or the much bigger issue on why Bongbong Marcos should not be president.
So you don't think it was an inoculation? You think it was a genuine accusation against an unnamed candidate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a genuine accusation, but if you think about it, it also, even if it's a genuine accusation, it also downplays the very fact as to why people should not vote for Marcos Jr. Because I'm not saying that we should downplay cocaine use, but it's, among in the hierarchy of issues as to why you will not vote for Bongbong Marcos, cocaine use is not on top of the issue.
Pero it was in
No,
line.
but I think, is it a strategy? Do you think that, yun na nga, it's all drama? Parang kunyari lang, kinakalaban niya si Bongbong when actually what he's doing is binabakunahan niya so that next year, pagka in the heat of the election campaign, kahit na yun, hindi natatalab. I mean, nobody's gonna react to it anymore.
Oo.
Do you think that's a
Sa akin,
ploy?
tingin ko kaya niya, kaya niya kinakalaban is because he was really like what Dinto said earlier, he was really pissed that he was not on top of the decision making of Sara, and he really wanted Sara to run for president. And it came from his mouth, di ba? Na parang bakit tatakbo si Sara for president? Eh, siya yung mataas ang niya sa surveys. And and she's a Duterte, no? The pedigree is very important, no? So especially now that it is after the presidency of Duterte, so very popular pa rin si Duterte. But then, so that's the one thing that can also be said about that tirade, no? Nainis talaga siya.
Dindo, where
So
does
may-
this where does this put PDP laban? Wala nang kandidato PDP laban. I mean, is it still worth talking about them? Do they still have cards
Does
to
it
play
matter
here?
if kung may
Yeah.
kandidato sila or wala? They were a non-player for decades. But I think the real reason to that is the case that the leadership battle really, if from a strategic point of view, suddenly what if COMELEC or the Supreme Court drags it until the very end and you have two leadership? So might as well maybe not be involved with PDP Laban. Remember this battle between the Pimentel wing and the Pusi wing. So might
Okay,
as
so
well-
ito bang pag-withdraw ni Bongo, kawalan ba ito na pakikinabangan ng ibang kandidato? I mean, is there so much support for Bongo that got lost here by his withdrawal that might transfer to another candidate? May ganun ba yun? I mean,
Sa akin, it's the other way around. Lucci, it's really more of they will consolidate their support because at the end of the day, these are the Duterte political factions uniting once again after a few weeks of friction internally. Now you have very clear Marcos and Sara Duterte are together, supported by Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, and you add the Estrada family. Very nice picture of the type of politics that the four practices.
Pero you think
so you expect that DDS, I mean, the loyal following of President Duterte will now really also move to BBM, ganon.
Have they not moved this past few weeks? I've noticed some of the DDS influencers, I like to call them influencers because for the past 5 years, they came out of nowhere and became commentators. Suddenly, we're praising Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte. So, you know that there was a projection. I have a habit, maybe it's the researcher in me, I listen to those people. And I've noticed how they shifted their narrative after October 8th. That they were really for this Bongbong, Sara. They kept on pushing the two together. Then when November 15 happened, very clear where they are. And they kept on hyping, mahati ang boto natin. But you know that they were not referring to Bongo. They were referring to sayang for Bongbong Marcos and a Sara Duterte family.
you think this will put greater pressure on the non-administration forces to consolidate as well? Siguro
They
not
sh-
behind the
it should.
candidate, pero because maybe some of them will drop out, hindi naman siguro solid na isa lang but some of them might drop out. You think this is a possibility?
They should accept that reality. That has always been the view of a lot of people who look at the demographics and even the numbers. So I really don't know why some are running. I don't know who told them that there is a chance, even with massive resources being spent. So it makes you think why they're running in the first place.
Yeah.
So I hope they see that, especially when you raise issues of you want a better government. When you raise issues of better government before, you're basically questioning the administration.
Yeah, Professor Jean, and Dindo na rin, no? But Dindo mentioned kasi the resources, di ba? The massive resources. The way things are going out, are those resources now accounted for? I mean, are they now allotted and firmed up for certain candidates? And will that signal how the other candidates will also have to, make a decision sooner or later?
It has always been the case that, if you are supported or if you are the administration candidate, it's really a very big edge. I remember noon Senator Ernesto Maceda saying that, no, na talagang pag kandidato ka ng administrasyon, ang laki ng advantage mo. And that is what is going for whoever Duterte will be supporting, no? Not just yung hindi lang yung transfer of votes kasi pag sa survey naman ang kaunti lang, no, hindi naman leading sa survey si Bongo, but then yung resources, no, and also like what Dindo earlier said, yung the ano lang, no, the image that they're all united, parang it's a big boost, no, in terms of public perceptions that mukhang malaking malaking nagsama-sama na yung mga pamilya, mukhang mahirap ng talunin, no? And kung ganun yung mentality ng ibang voters, then yun yung pwedeng mangyari. Talagang they're really going to be a force to reckon with.
You think there's any chance that President Duterte will actually support Bongbong? Or, I mean, is there any chance that he might support Senator Pacquiao, for example? Because that's the other faction of the PDP laban. At kakampi pa rin naman niya, I think, sila Coco Pimentel, ano? You think there's any...
matagal nang nagiwahiwalay ang grupo niya sa PDP laban, Ani.
Wala na.
There is a clear division. And some even believe that Senator Pimentel was instigating Manny Pacquiao. So very clear na yan. So I don't think and there was an attempt, I think, on the part of Senator Manny even to reach out again in this visit to Malacanang, which the mere fact nothing happened there, it's a sign that either maybe you fall in line with us, maybe that's the demand of the president. So you ask yourself now with Senator Manny Pacquiao, would he like that kind of leadership, or what will come out of this leadership? It's beyond President Duterte. Now it's Marcos and the daughter, Sara Duterte. So it's a time to think also for his allies, the remaining allies that they have.
Yes, you're not seeing some members of the Cusi faction going to the Pacquiao faction of the PDP.
No, it was quite clear. If you even look at the history of the PDP Laban, people who were allied with Coco Pimentel, I used to see them as simple staff in the office of the Senate President. They're now, since they got appointed by President Duterte in some key positions, they're all with Cusi wing, and I felt really bad for Coco Pimentel. I don't see them going back to Coco Pimentel. Walang poder doon. Reality. No? PDP Laban is now a weak party as it was before, because then it got a boost when they had a president. Now the president is quite clear that he's not with his wing. And Cusi has a different wing. They will simply maybe ally themselves with the candidate of the president. And it's clear, it's Marcos is the candidate of the president. So he carries that burden now, or the positive side of the Duterte administration.
Hey, professors.
Okay,
go ahead, Lucy. Sorry.
What about Mindanao? Professor Jean or Dindono? Do you think that Mindanao is solidly behind Duterte, Marcos, Duterte? I mean, if you're saying yun ang endorse,
it's hard to measure, but the data that we saw, of course, Marcos is doing very well, not as strong as if it was a Duterte name, maybe. But that's why I was joking and teasing the tandem Lacson and Soto. Since their alliance is with Partido Reforma of Speaker Alvarez, I said, why not ask Speaker Alvarez is to go around Mindanao and focused on weakening. Remember, he found a way to break the control of the Dutertes in some places right outside of Davao City. So it will not be as solid as people think, but it depends on the alliances that will be made by some political group opposing a Marcos Duterte tandem.
Professor Jean?
Professor Jean, what about your reading on Mindanao?
Well, I think that's the very purpose of Marcos Jr. Aligning himself with Sara, because he needed the regional votes of Mindanao, and it seems to be working for him, but it remains to be seen. Well, given that Bongo has withdrawn from the race, and we split the tickets naman in voting for president and vice president, then that's probably going to Manny Pacquiao. Some of the votes also in Mindanao will not be with Bongo, will now be with Manny Pacquiao if Mindanaoans will stick to regional voting.
Kasi hindi ba this will also reflect on the pool of President Duterte? Bongo is his closest aide, and hindi niya maitaas-taas sa survey, di ba? It happened even in 2016. In 2016 na hindi niya nadala si Alan Peter Cayetano. What does this say? May reflection ba yon on President Duterte itong pag-withdraw ni Senator Bongo as his endorsed successor?
Yes.
Sa akin kasi, sa akin ang nakikita ko dito, it's not so much the Duterte endorsement as the position in which these people are being voted for, no? Kasi it's easy to vote for Bongo in the 2019 elections, for instance, because it's in a senatorial slate, madami, no? You can just put many names as you can, no? Basta mapuno mo yung 12. But I guess people, as one goes higher up to the vice presidency and presidency, people are more discerning. And as I've said in the earlier program, no, may bagahe din yung pagiging very close ni Bongo kay Duterte. On the one hand, it catapulted him into a senator from a mere aide. Pero when people were beginning to think of him as president, hindi talaga nila maisip. Kasi nga, parang para sa kanila, talagang siya, aide.
Yeah, but to that point, Dindo, yung tanong ni Ami, nakaka-intriga nga yun. Parang, I think you've already made your point na, we expected this, parang you saw it coming, and so on. But what was it, at the very least, a hedge? Was it at the very least na we have time to experiment to see kung may weight, kung may pull itong endorsement ni President Duterte? And makita natin hindi, we can always revert to quote-unquote, the plan?
There is still power behind that brand, the Duterte brand. And I believe things happen beyond November 15th. Maybe attempts by the Marcoses also to appease the president. So we will not know. But at the end of the day, there's value to that. If not, the Marcoses would even attack the Dutertes directly. So, but there's a daughter in that tandem. So for me, who is Bongo compared to the daughter? If there was no daughter there, it was a simply Marcos Pacquiao gathering, then there's no Duterte value. But the mere fact Sara Duterte is there, who is Sara Duterte to run for national office if not for the Duterte name? You have to factor that in. And that's the value of Sara Duterte to a presidential candidate like Marcos. So there's reason for that. There's strong support for that name for some sectors of society.
No, well, ako naman, it's not so much name, but, kasi presidential endorsements nga, historically, are pretty strong, right? Do you
sure?
think...
Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo
Diba?
endorsed Giboche Doro and Manny Villar, Noynoy Aquino with a little over 60% approval rating endorse a Mar Rojas. At the end of the day, there's some value to it. Or Fidel V. Ramos endorsed Joe De Venecia. But it's the character of that candidate at the end of the day. There's a boost, maybe a little push, but historically, it doesn't really follow. What's working is they're in control of the resources of government.
Yeah, exactly.
Aquino did not use that to a certain extent. Diba? Maybe even Arroyo, we have to give her credit that maybe allowed the democratic process. So the question is, will Duterte not do that also for a Marcos, considering the daughter is there also running for vice president?
Okay, so his endorsement holds little power. Is that what you're saying? I mean,
no, I'm not saying that.
based
It's
on
just
history.
that it's how you use your endorsement and the resources that comes with it that matters. And for me, Marcos is his candidate. I've shared it with some of you, or even in the show. I've always believed either of the two. I kept on saying that Marcos or Sara or the other way around. That's a tandem. All this noise about why will you risk it with Bongo, who was ranking what 6%, 7%. Quarterly polls is late last year. Why not risk it with a Bongo Marcos, who was either second or third in polls, or even a Sara Duterte, who went down percentage-wise, and maybe it's the fault of the president. Remember the all this family investigation. So it matters. It's very important to have the support of President Duterte, especially the power that he possesses going into an election year. But for me, that the one that will benefit from that is now Marcos. Forget about Bongo. He was part of the play that we were seeing. Let's go beyond that and look at the strategic value, which is a Marcos that can consolidate vote in the Visayas, in Mindanao, Luzon, but the Dutertes can bring Mindanao or Visayas. So that will be a good tandem from their perspective.
Okay. Professors, we are practically out of time, but I wanted to squeeze in this one last question. Mabilis lang, kung kaya. Dindo, kanina you pointed, actually you didn't paint, I think you referenced a picture. Di ba? This picture, as you said, of Duterte, Marcos, GMA, you threw in ERAP in there, and as you said, the politics that they represent. I won't ask you to define what that politics is because we're out of time, among other things. But however people can define that, could that potentially represent, a drawing of a line in Philippine politics, or an opportunity to define society along ideological terms? So, in other words, what is the implication of that, quote unquote, that kind of politics, with people who will say we are on the opposite end of that kind of politics? Beyond these campaigns, might this also represent an opportunity for drawing of lines and maybe, I don't know, beyond coalescing and coalition building, people actually trying to think, how do we define parties? How do we define partisan politics in this country?
I've always seen through elections, and we've tracked it through 3 national surveys already, and we're running one again with Pulse Asia. We just finished with Social Weather Station last October, and very clear what they look for. Somebody that is honest, trustworthy, not corrupt, to deal with the economic consequences of this pandemic. That's what came out in terms of issues. But can you imagine the picture in a stage of Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, Estrada, Marcoses, and the Dutertes after finally? But is that how the people look at them now? Facts will tell us they should look at them that way, but maybe the disinformation, I'm becoming an activist for dealing with pandemic of disinformation also. So maybe the perception is different, but data will show that group represent that kind of governance, which has caused problems through the years in the country.
Professor Jean, we'll let you have the final word.
I think it's also important for the other candidates to emphasize why people will vote for them in very concrete ways, aside from merely presenting themselves as I'm not going to be corrupt, I do not have a history of corruption, I'm honest. Because at the end of the day, people have to, think that their lives are going to get better, even if you're not corrupt.
Okay. Professor Dindo Manhit, Professor Jean Encinas Franco, maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir and ma'am.
Ingat.
And that's all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez, and this is One News.